How many times do I have to tell you? Stay away from them!
Please, I can't breathe! Just leave me alone!
My ex had his hand around my throat, and my 5-year-old daughter was on her knees, begging him to stop. People were watching, phones out, nobody moved, and just when I thought this was how I was going to die, right here, on a Tuesday, in front of my baby, I noticed a man standing in the crowd, still, calm, watching everything like he'd seen worse, like this was already over. What I didn't know in that moment was that he was one of the most dangerous men in the city, and in the next few seconds, everything changed. What happened next still doesn't feel real. My name is Serena. I'm 29 years old, single mom, working morning shifts at a small diner where the coffee is always slightly burnt and the tips barely cover rent. My daughter Maya is 5 years old, and she is my entire world. The only reason I got out of bed when getting out of bed felt like climbing a mountain. Because the truth is, I wasn't just tired, I was scared. I left her father, Dominic, 18 months before that Tuesday. Packed 2 bags, put Maya in the car, drove to my cousin Layla's apartment at 2 in the morning while he was sleeping. I thought leaving was the hard part. I was so wrong, because leaving him was just the beginning. Dominic didn't accept it. He called, he followed, he showed up. At my job, at Maya's school, outside Layla's building at midnight, not doing anything, just standing there, watching, making sure he knew he could. I got a restraining order, but if you've ever dealt with someone like that, you already know. Paper doesn't stop obsession. It just makes them more patient, more careful, more dangerous. For 18 months, I lived like a woman being hunted, checking locks 4 times, memorizing routes and changing them, sitting with my back to the wall in every room I entered. Maya started asking why I always looked scared. I told her I wasn't. She looked at me the way 5-year-olds do when they know you're lying but love you too much to say so. It was a Tuesday. Maya had a half day at school. I took her to the Riverside Mall to buy shoes. Her left sneaker had a hole in the toe that had been there 2 weeks longer than I was proud of. She picked the light-up ones. Too expensive. I bought them anyway, because the way she smiled when she stomped her feet and watched them flash, that mattered more than the $12. We were walking back to the car. Maya was holding my hand. Her new shoes were lighting up with every step. And then, I felt it. That feeling in your chest when something is wrong, the kind that lives in your stomach when you've been hunted long enough to develop instincts you never asked for. I turned around slowly, and there he was, Dominic, leaning against a car across the lot, arms crossed, watching us, smiling. My stomach dropped, and in that moment, I knew this wasn't going to end well. "Baby, walk," I whispered, but it was already too late. He grabbed my arm, hard, fingers like a vice. "Did you really think you could leave me?" he said, low, controlled, the tone I knew better than anything, the one that meant he had already decided what was going to happen. Maya started crying. "Daddy, please." He didn't even look at her. Then his hand moved from my arm to my throat. Tight, not enough to finish it yet, just enough to make sure I understood he could. Everything slowed down. The parking lot, the noise, the people with their phones, it all went distant and strange, like I was watching from somewhere outside my own body. People were staring, recording. Nobody helped. Nobody said a word. And then Maya dropped to her knees on the cold asphalt. "Please, please don't hurt my mommy." He didn't care. Not even a little. And that, the way he looked right through his own daughter like she didn't exist, that was the moment I understood completely. There was no version of this where he was going to stop on his own. That's when I realized something terrifying. He wasn't going to stop. That's when I saw it. The crowd was moving, not away from Dominic, away from someone else. A man, tall, calm, Expensive suit, the kind that doesn't announce itself but you notice anyway. Salt and pepper hair, cut close, walking toward us like none of this surprised him, like he'd seen worse, like this was already over.
He moved slowly. No urgency, no alarm. And the crowd parted for him. Not because he pushed anyone. They just moved. The way you move when something enormous passes close to you and every instinct you have says, "Get out of the way." I didn't know who he was, but Dominic did. Because the moment Dominic saw him, his face changed. And I had never, in 3 years, seen Dominic afraid of anything until that moment. The man stopped a few feet away. He looked at Dominic's hand, at me, at Maya on her knees, then back at Dominic. And he said quietly, conversationally, the way you might order coffee, "Let her go." Not loud, not angry, just final. Even the people recording lowered their phones. Dominic hesitated. That was his first mistake. The man stepped forward. He took Dominic's wrist in one hand, no visible effort, and twisted it slightly. Dominic let go instantly. I collapsed, gasping. Maya ran into my arms. I held her so tightly she made a small sound but didn't pull away. We held each other on that parking lot ground while the world reorganized itself around us. Dominic, whatever was left of his pride, tried to swing. He didn't get close. One punch, clean and precise, like punctuation at the end of a sentence. He hit the ground hard and didn't get back up. The entire parking lot went silent. That's when I understood this wasn't just a man. Then, from beside him, a second figure stepped forward. In a suit, serious expression, eyes scanning everything. "Should we handle this, Mr. Volkov?" Mr. Volkov.
And I watched 3 people nearby take a full step back when they heard it, just from the name alone. The police came, and Dominic was arrested on the spot. Restraining order violation, assault, too many witnesses to ignore this time. I sat on the curb with Maya in my lap, her light-up shoes flashing quietly against the asphalt. I was shaking, barely holding it together. Then he walked over. He crouched down slightly, not to tower over me, but to meet me where I was. "Are you all right?" he asked. I nodded. Couldn't speak. He looked at Maya. "Nice shoes." She looked down, pressed her heel. The lights flashed. "They light up," she told him, with great seriousness. "I see that," he said. And there was something in his voice that wasn't quite a smile, but was close. Then he stood, reached into his jacket, and held out a small white card. Just a number, nothing else. "If he comes near you again, call." And just like that, he was gone, like nothing had happened. I sat there holding that card, October wind cold against the bruises already forming on my throat, and told myself I wouldn't call. That was almost the biggest mistake of my life. 3 weeks later, I walked out to my car at 6 in the morning. 4 tires slashed, and tucked under the windshield wiper, a note. 2 words. "Still watching." My hands didn't shake this time. I already knew what to do. I took out the card and dialed. He picked up on the second ring. "This is Serena," I said, from the parking lot. A pause. "I know who you are." He left a note on my car. A shorter pause. "Send me a photo. Don't touch anything else." "Okay." "Serena." "Yes." "You were right to call." Something in my chest loosened when he said that. Just slightly. Just enough. That's when I realized this wasn't just protection. This was power.
Within hours, everything changed. I didn't ask exactly how. I learned quickly that asking exactly how was not the right approach with Alexander Volkov.
What I knew was this. There were people near my building who hadn't been there before. Near Maya's school, near Patty's diner. Quiet, unremarkable people who nevertheless moved like men who had decided something about their responsibility to the space around them. Dominic's bail? Revoked. Just like that. No drama, no explanation. Just handled. I sat in my apartment that night trying to understand what I had stepped into. The word for it, Mafia, sat in the back of my mind like something I wasn't ready to look at directly. He called the next morning. "And Dominic?" I asked. "Will reconsider his priorities," he said. That's not really an answer. "No," he agreed. "It's not." And somehow, that honesty was more reassuring than any answer would have been. He started coming by on Tuesdays. Always called first. Always stayed exactly as long as he said he would. Never made me feel like his presence was something I owed him. He didn't control us. He didn't hover. He just showed up. He brought Maya a book about a rabbit who went on adventures. He'd somehow found out she liked rabbits. He sat with her and listened to her like what she said mattered, which, to a 5-year-old who had spent too long feeling invisible, was everything. He brought me a better coffee maker, left it on the counter with a note that said, "Life is too short for bad coffee." He fixed the kitchen table, the one that wobbled on one leg that I'd been meaning to fix for a year. Did it one Tuesday morning while I was at work. No note, no announcement. Just a table that no longer wobbled. He made me laugh. That was the thing I hadn't expected at all. Under the stillness, the authority, the particular kind of weight he carried, there was a dry, quiet wit that caught me off guard every single time. And for the first time in years, I could breathe. I started looking forward to Tuesdays. I told myself that was fine. Then, the message came. Through a mutual acquaintance. Not directly. Even Dominic wasn't that careless anymore. But the message was clear. He was getting out soon. He knew about Volkov. And he didn't care. I called Alexander before I'd even reached my car. He listened without interrupting. When I finished, he said, "Come to dinner. Bring Maya." "Alexandra." "Serena. Come to dinner." I went. His house was large and quiet, and warmer than I expected. Maya found an enormous old gray dog within 60 seconds and disappeared into the garden with it, which left me standing in the kitchen watching a man who commanded fear from half the city make pasta from scratch. After Maya fell asleep, the old dog curled at her feet, he sat across from me and said simply, "It's handled." What does that mean? It means he will not come near you again. I looked at him for a long moment. "Why do you keep doing this?" I asked. He was quiet. The real kind, not avoidance, just thought. "Because," he said finally, "somewhere along the way, this stopped being about the parking lot." The kitchen was very still. "For me, too," I said. I used to think safe was the locks I checked 4 times, the routes I memorized and changed, keys in my hand, eyes moving in every room. Safe was the absence of threat, defined entirely by what wasn't there. Now I know something different. Safe is Maya eating breakfast in a house where no one is angry. Safe is sleeping through the night and waking up without running calculations before I open my eyes. Safe is her laugh, big, unself-conscious, completely free, the kind she hadn't been able to give fully since she was 3 years old. Safe is a kitchen table that doesn't wobble. Safe is Tuesdays. Dominic took a plea deal. He's serving time. The details are public record, though the efficiency with which his legal options narrowed is perhaps not entirely explained by public record alone. I don't think about him much anymore. I think about that woman in the parking lot, hand at her throat, watching the crowd look away, and I want to reach back through time and tell her something. Not yet. Wait. The crowd is about to part. Today, Maya is 6. She lost 2 teeth. She has 3 loud opinions about her bedroom color. She calls Alexander Sasha, which is not what anyone else in his world calls him, and it seems to delight him in a way that nothing else quite does. I'm taking online classes now, working towards something I let myself dare to want again. And every Tuesday, without fail, he calls first, stays as long as he said he would, and never once makes me feel like any of it is owed. I'm not surviving anymore. I'm living. Because the day I thought my life was ending wasn't the worst day of my life. It was the day the right person finally stepped in. And sometimes, that's all it takes to change everything. Please like and subscribe for more interesting stories.